Now 6 o'clock. Here. Call the meeting to order. Okay. Item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes from our last meeting on February 6th. I have a copy of them here. They want to move for their adoption.
Rich,
You want to make
apologies. Yeah, before we, can I go ahead and make the amendments to the agenda?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to add to the election officers and our April meeting date. I think we can add them after public comments.
And I may have to make a revision to my suggested April date, but I suggested just Saturday, but we can discuss that.
That's fine, yeah. And who would like to second that?
Seconds.
All in favor?
3A and 3B.
Okay. All right, so going back to the agenda, anybody want to move for adoption of the minutes? I said. Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes from the last meeting on February the 6th are adopted. The next item is public comments. Colin, did you want to have something to ask or say?
Something to ask. We were just wondering if there are any instances, known of any instances of misinformation being deliberately struck on Arlington.
Deliberately spread,
Or spread in any way.
how far back are we going?
Oh, just this election cycle. Yeah, no, don't into history here.
Okay. I was not aware of any misinformation, but if anybody hears anything, let me know. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that Gretchen mentioned nothing about misinformation, but apparently there were some individuals around the Commonwealth who perhaps were looking to some way sabotage election machines by destroy their ballots and they had to be hand counted.
Yeah.
That did not appear to be an issue here.
No.
Not in Arlington.
No.
That did happen.
We'll find out next week when we hear all the stories at our conference.
Somebody was encouraging that rebellious voters do that.
Yeah.
All right. And that was
government of Russia, China, North Korea.
Okay.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to be explicit again.
Then Frank also had.
I think I was just curious what the policy was for the electoral board and when complaints are lodged against election officer, are they informed? Are the election officers informed of the specific complaints that were lodged?
Yes, so obviously every election does get complaints from the general public. Usually they are not specific enough to where they've identified the election officer. So it is sometimes hard to follow up and identify certain people. If we do get a complaint on election day or during early voting, and it's a behavior that we deem necessary to that needs to be stopped, then we do notify the precinct immediately that there's something that that there's behavior there that needs to stop. But once again, it doesn't usually identify an election officer.
But internally among the election officers in the precinct.
Once again, they don't, like I said, we don't have a ton of complaints where they're named. Obviously, we do have to ask chiefs for feedback on their workers, but because all of that is somewhat HR related, just like any performance evaluation is, then some of that does remain. Like I said, there is a formal policy in place.
All right. Any other public comments? Hearing none,
Okay, so we have 66 names that have applied since our last appointment. So we apologize, they are reverse alphabet.
What?
You gotta do something to keep tonight interesting.
Keeping us toes in.
Once again, these are individuals who applied through our application online. And we have verified that they are qualified registered voters.
But I'll make the motion that we approve this list of individuals as election officer effective until March
March.
March 10th.
I think we should expire them the same time as everyone else. February 28, 2025. Question. Once we did in February, we're free through the end of
We
February.
usually do through the end of February.
And let's just make them for the end of February, and they'll be on the list that gets reappointed.
Yeah, so until February 28th, 20.
I second that. Is there any discussion of this? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Those are approved. The next item is our next meeting date, and I think in the normal course, we would be meeting in April. I had suggested on Saturday, but perhaps a good meeting date would be Wednesday, April 9th, but I just discovered from my wife that there is a surprise retirement party scheduled for me that evening, so I cannot. April.
Yeah.
So, is there a day that week that works for anybody?
I think the week is generally fine.
So the 8th, 9th, and 10th are out. So
Should we just continue along for the week, go to the 11th,
Is Thursday night?
Thursday?
yeah,
Okay, 6 o'clock. Vote on that. We'll just have that as our next meeting day.
Works case.
All right, the next item is to certify election. I got it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna pass down materials to sign, and you guys don't normally see this piece, but the canvas is meeting on the weekend, but, okay. So,
Go ahead, Gretchen.
are you sure?
Yeah, because it's something unrelated to. what we're
Okay.
about to do.
I'm gonna start with the, okay, quick, what is 216 plus 177?
400. Wait, 300. 300. Wait, 216 plus 177? Yeah, 390.
393. So during the provisional ballot meeting, we accepted 177 Democratic ballots and 216 Republican ballots. So I'm just going to pass down so I'm going to start by sending you the folder, Kim. So when you're done, just put everything that I send you in this folder. And everything down with that. That's all that's the folder. That's everybody to be accepted.
But this.
Oh, this part too?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the other, yeah.
Okay, so that goes, I'm gonna have you do SR1, you're gonna do SR2, I have to fill out this top period, this top space here. So the total number of voters checked in was 177.
For the Democratic.
Yeah,
Party.
and then 216 for the Republican.
393 total.
Yeah.
None were outside the polls.
Yeah.
That's.
And then zeros. And then just sign.
Are we certifying that the 4 pages of this statement of results?
Yes.
We count the back as a separate page, yes.
Thank you. Well, so you guys,
On the, are you completed your statements?
my statements,
Yes, regarding our certification, do I get to know?
the
Okay.
checklists, I had Kim say it. Yeah.
Okay. My only statement was, and I did not think about this, at the, you can get a second. Given that the canvas part of the meetings that we have over the course of the week, not the provisional part, but the canvas part, are treated as public meetings, we should all consider, I'm not going to make any promises because it may not really be feasible. Have video on, I mean, we're mostly in this room for that. In case anyone is just so interested.
By the reading out of
Riveted by the
numbers.
reading out of numbers that they want to listen in.
Okay.
Let me make that note of that.
Okay,
No motion was attached to that.
so that just needs to be sealed. That has the machine codes from it. Then here's the seal for the blue bag. Now to the final certification. So
Knock it over.
I'm gonna let Kim catch up real quick.
Gretchen, I put everything in the envelope, correct?
Yes. There, that, this one doesn't have a 0. Okay, wants to stamp.
Stamping.
No, it gets for the next step.
Oh, well, since Kim is the last one to sign,
She has to sign twice.
I understand. As the person who did that last time, I'm aware.
That's front pocket.
Which front? Does it matter? Which one's the top? That's okay.
Not so easy, is it?
Little bag 7. All clear on one side.
Yeah, this clearly was the prototype that we misprint, if you will.
Got the little pocket for the media thing. Does anything else have to go in here?
No, Kim, you want to keep SOR 1 out of the blue bag before you seal it. Thank you. There's only SOR 2 goes to
We keep what?
this one.
And then this gets sealed and this goes.
Yes. You don't have to lick it.
Okay, thank you.
It's just gonna be sealed.
All right. And then this goes into, this goes.
Yes. Yeah. You
Got it. All right.
got it.
The inside, not the outside.
Yes. Let me go ahead and write the serial number. Okay.
No. Is there anything else?
No, just the codes. There are no keys for that one.
Nope. Nothing else needs to be added.
No.
Gonna ruin.
There it is. All right, and we keep SOR 1.
Yeah, we keep SOR 1.
Before I start sealing stuff, and it's like, yeah, what were you doing?
So once again, you guys have been through the canvas with the precincts.
Oh, thank
Don't be that person.
you.
So.
We wouldn't want to be on camera and sealing our bags when we yell at people for the sealing their bags.
All right, we are sealed. Okay.
And you need bag too, right?
Yeah, so.
Alrighty.
Okay, on to the signing of the abstract. So I'm just gonna give the whole stack to you, Rich. You're going to sign at the, so today, put the date, the 11th of March, and then sign on your appropriate line. Kim, I'm going to ask you to not sign the acting secretary line for the first Republican and first Democratic line. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because in the event that we're requested for a certified original, the acting secretary at that point in time would sign. Does that make sense?
Yep.
No, it doesn't. It didn't the last time, but I understand why we do it. I just think that
And then
they
these,
don't
these are
understand.
the ones that need to see.
Yeah. So you put the seal down by your signatures. That makes sense? Yep.
That nice little space reserved for the purpose.
I'll bring that one on. The electoral ordinance. Yes. I think you
Kim has
only,
to double sign 2, 3, and 4.
I think you only need to do 3, but I'd like to, while I have
Kim
you,
has to do 2 signatures.
Yep. Yep. And while I have you, I like you to do an extra one just on the option. This one.
The electoral process reading. Honey, you look like you're waiting with bated breath. Exciting event.
So which ones do I need to know?
I think all the ones that are still sitting, the 2 originals are the ones that we don't sign twice.
Oh,
Well, you
And
can
those
take
are-
a few, but I really printed out a few extra, so you can take one.
Gretchen, are these people, right?
Yes, that's the time. Because you are the acting secretary today.
She's not, she's the secretary. This is why I don't, I understand what the 4th line is for, I just don't. While we're in Richmond, I'm gonna talk to some people at the Department of Elections. I don't think they understand, like, how things, they're not conceptualizing this correctly.
The best of one.
Yeah. For those who don't understand why I'm doing this is there are 4 lines on that certification, on that abstract. One for each of us, and then one for the acting secretary, which gets signed at the time that the abstract is made. It's like when you get a certified copy of your birth certificate or any official document, whoever is like, it'll be like whoever, like when I get a birth certificate, it's whoever was the medical person of Kings County, New York, the day I was born, but then whoever is the person today that is certifying that this is a true and accurate record. That 4th line is that certification, which I don't think is the acting secretary. It's just whoever the secretary is on the day.
Yeah.
An acting secretary would be if Kim were unable to perform her duties at the moment and we needed to appoint somebody to perform them for her.
I don't disagree with you.
That's why I'm gonna go smacking some people around. Will that get us an
No,
extension?
you're not.
We need to reconception.
Fully certified.
Yes.
Okay.
So, like,
Yeah.
now certified. On to the next one.
At least our part of it.
The next item is a proposal nominating to adopt a policy, and
Yeah, so I will move the policy in the form that has been circulated. And just speak slightly to it if somebody seconds.
I'll second.
Okay, to explain for those listening and in the room. Arlington County, the government of Arlington County has a gift policy. We are not employees of the county. Their gift policy does not apply to us or anybody that works for the Department of Elections. That has never been an issue, but this summer we are going to embark on a purchasing process to replace the voting system that we use, so scanners. So it would be good as we all embark upon going to Hot Springs, Virginia for the Virginia Electoral Board Association Conference, where there will be vendors and other people who will be giving away things, I am sure, that we have a policy that applies to this board, to Gretchen and the employees that work for Gretchen. This is basically Arlington County's gift policy with some tinkering because certain things don't work. It'll apply to us, it'll apply to Gretchen. Gretchen is technically our employee. We're nobody's employees. Like we are the governing body in the sense and the way. So references to employee have generally replaced by a more general covered individual. There are certain things that don't make sense because they have other policies and things that apply to them that we have not adopted at the moment. So generally speaking, if you go find the gift policy for the county, this will look a lot like the gift policy for the county, but what I will say is necessary changes. We've added the electoral code, Title 24.2 of the Virginia Code applies to us, doesn't necessarily apply to them. And similar such things. That's particularly because there is a gift provision in 24.2 that is applicable to us. And want to make sure that that's in there.
I just have some general questions, trying to figure out perhaps the history of this. Have we had informally a gift policy? Do other electoral boards have a gift policy?
It's an interesting question. To the best of my knowledge, our office and the electoral board have never had a gift policy, nor am I aware of any electoral board in the Commonwealth having an explicit gift policy like this. And when we say gift policy, it's the prohibition from accepting gifts of a certain monetary value.
It's not the policy for how people should give us.
Yes. What we've always done is, it's always a good rule of thumb is we've been following the county gift policy, even though it doesn't explicitly apply to us. But I have thought it was a decent policy and one that should be followed, especially at any time you're doing a high risk procurement purchase. So, but electoral boards and registrars are exempt from the certain provisions of the Procurement Act in Virginia. So, yeah.
So adopting this, do you think would in any way impede your ability to do
No.
your job?
None whatsoever. And like I said, this has never been a problem with vendors explicitly buying, but it is nice to have things clarified over what vendors can and can't. The monetary limit of what vendors can and can't.
It is always nice when we say no to people, to be able to point to something and say, this is why.
Yeah.
We have a policy about this, so that there's no issue of like, we're saying no to you, but then we say yes to somebody else. Us saying no to somebody is some sort of indication of their standing or.
Or even like the perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recollection from last year's board meeting is that all the vendors were giving out gifts and none of them came close to being worth $20 a person.
No. Every now and then there's a door prize where the value of the gift would exceed $20, and that's the only time it would really cross over. Is if we shouldn't enter in for that door prize if we knew the value of the item was $100.
Rest is, I don't have any objection to it.
I'm less worried about what's gonna be at the vendor tables next weekend, as once people find out that we're in the market, what they might decide they would do with that information.
What is the expected total value of our purchase contract?
Yeah, for voting systems, we have $2 million in the CIP for that, which in the capital improvement plan for next year. So it may or may not exceed that. So. That's the
The 24.2, 124.1 is.
Yeah, those are the inclusions.
You'll see one thing that was added if you do a comparison to the county policy is there's an exception in the county policy about meals provided to people in the course of their duties. I said to the extent that those are prohibited by one, they would not be an exception. The first vice president of the Virginia Electoral Board Association knows I don't necessarily agree with the expansive interpretation that has been given to that provision by the VIVA. I don't think food is likely covered. That's not what the General Assembly was getting at. But yeah, because their current view is that if, for example, I'm not going to use any of you as examples because you have affiliations with things that might be, but even if, like, say, my sister lived in Arlington, came by and gave, when I was a chief, gave my precinct food for everyone at the, now you get into, oh, a member of the public is giving food to election officers, and they would say that's not allowed. Now, that is the outer edge of not allowed. So I think it would come. But we have not, as a board, made that determination.
And I don't think any of us want to end up in court over.
Yeah, no one wants to.
Yeah.
We don't need to attract the eye of the Commonwealth's attorney about whether we should be prosecuted under.
Is Tanya covered under the?
No, she would be an employee of the department, the Office of Voter Registration, which is under our purview, not there.
Yeah.
As sometimes we have to remind the county board. Gretchen works for us, not for them. Which is why another reason why we're passing policy is that, not that we can morally upstanding person, but that anybody in the office be tempted by.
All right, is there any other further discussion of this?
Yeah.
No.
All right, hearing no further discussion, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Ayes have it, and so we have adopted the policy, and I assume you have.
We're gonna do a little formatting because there's some weird page breaks in the draft.
So it's unanimous with formatting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. At the outer edge, it'll be changed with the minute.
Yeah,
Meeting.
because we just need to. Format. Okay.
All right, well, I'm not sure we have any further business. I do want to thank all the members of the fine job of putting together the election last week. We did have several people who voted by absentee ballot and then also tried to vote on election day. Didn't count their election day votes. he decided not to refer the double voters to attorney's office.
And by way of explanation, so no one thinks oddly of what we decided to do, all of the cases were people who sent in their absentee ballots literally the minute they received them, like January 24th, January 26th. They said, they had forgotten, with all due respect to our attendees, they were on the older side. I forget things, and I am sure my mother forgets things all the time. So we did not think they were nefariously trying to vote twice. One of the people, their absentee ballot was different from the one they voted on election day in terms of which primary. That may have been a situation where somebody and that they are not entitled to vote both primaries. So they voted in the Democratic primary and absentee, and then they came in and said, well, but I didn't get a Republican ballot. I want. Said, that's not how this works. Go over there.
All right, is there any further business? Hearing none, it is 6:31.
I move we adjourn.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.